Well, good evening, everyone. This is Michael, and we're continuing with our look at the destiny of the nations as part of our series, The Soul of Nations. And very soon we'll be having another intake for the Esoteric United Nations group. It'll be necessary in being part of that group to offer a commitment that one will, keep on with it until the next new group of world servers festival week, which is from the 21st through 28th of Capricorn in the year 2026. It's December. So we'll offer that opportunity, and we'll be letting you know about it. And our work will be to attempt to support the emerging soul of nations, and thereby, of course, support the emerging soul of humanity at this time when the second ray soul of the planet is coming into expression through the externalization of the hierarchy and the reappearance of the Christ. A very important transition time, and of course when such transitional moments come upon us, there will be the counterforce also evoked. That counterforce has not been defeated on our planet. A certain amount of the evil of ignorance we do expect, because people are simply limited by what they don't know, and they make mistakes, and the mistakes are obstructive. But a deliberate attempt to thwart the divine plan of the planetary logos, that's something else. And we're in such a period because the potentials are so great now for real progress, spiritual progress in the human race. And of course, when I say spiritual progress, I mean along the 7 ashramic lines. I don't simply mean progress that has to do with religions per se. That's one aspect of it, but not the entirety. We have to redefine what spirituality really is. So in this wonderful little book, The Destiny of the Nations, albeit written maybe, 74, 73 years ago, we have some major nations listed, and they've been around a long time, and they are quite the populous ones. Many of them are very populous, and DK shows us how to think about them. And so when it comes to the new and emerging nations, we will have a kind of a template, kind of a model about how we can think about the qualities which must come forward from these nations, and the other kinds of qualities which are more personal and more obstructive. We've been working on the United States, and we're going to finish that today in terms of its major energies. We have understood, well, fortunately or unfortunately, it is so important, and what happens to its democracy is so important at this time. We don't want to see it turn into some kind of oligarchy of wealth and supported by a fascist dictatorship against which we've been warned. And if that kind of model is set, then many nations will be, who have looked to the United States as a model, those nations will be in trouble. So the next 5 years have a lot to say about whether we can, not just in the United States, but around the world, preserve democracy, which is the second-ray method of rulership. Monarchy, first-ray; democracy, second-ray; socialism, third-ray. And we see in the world a number of social democracies. They work well for the welfare of the people. And we see some constitutional monarchies that are as well democracies. But in any case, the people have to be educated, and they have to have a power restored to them. And of course, the founding articles and documents from the period of revolution in the United States, and all of this under Master R, who is the regent of the United States and the regent of Europe, articulate very well what the ideal is and should be, and how it should be sustained. But there is old Adam, we might say, and the personality of the human being has naturally selfish and elemental inclinations. Unfortunately, it is true. And those inclinations have not yet been defeated, and so, they present to the higher aspects of the human being an obstacle to better judgment and to growth. The U.S., an Aquarian soul nation on the second ray, a Gemini personality nation on the sixth ray, its capital, Cancer, that's the soul quality. It can be isolative. Its personality of Washington, D.C., Sagittarius, overzealous, and fanatical, because greater aspects of the sixth ray come through Sagittarius more than any other sign. And so that sixth ray Sagittarian tendency reinforces the sixth ray personality of the entire nation. The sixth ray is problematic, but it does light the way. And the ageless wisdom can go forth from the United States. The Aquarian light can go forth, must go forth, and it's one of the three nations that, with the United Kingdom, not looking so united lately, but with the United Kingdom and with Russia, that will have a powerful influence on the future of humanity, because great social experiments are going on in all these three groupings. We talked also about the indirect influences within the United States, the seventh ray coming under one of the major rulerships by Uranus, and it's brought in the old Atlantean magic, because strangely, compared to the lore with which we are familiar, United States is considered to be the center of the old Atlantean continent. I was really surprised when I read that, because the lore around it tells us, that Atlantis sunk beneath the waves, but were a number of floods, and Blavatsky details these. So we still have that old spiritualistic magic to deal with. We have love wisdom coming in under Jupiter, a ruler of the soul sign Aquarius. And if anything, that reinforces the second ray soul, and it has been, and will be, should be, a great humanitarian nation, but naive and adolescent, which is problematic. And then the fourth ray comes in several ways, as we have been seeing. It links it up with Germany, with the fourth ray soul of Germany, and we've seen, that following the takeover by the forces of evil and their defeat, at least their temporary defeat, there is an alliance between Germany and the United States on the fourth ray. The moon is the ruler of the Aquarian soul. And there are other ways that the fourth ray comes in. It tells us that a lot of German people came to the United States on the basis of that numerical affinity. Now you kind of wonder, when you look at Canada, we're going to try to do that. There's not as much material that the Tibetan is given on Canada, but it does seem to have, it must have some connections with France, I would say. There have been, the French and the English relationship has been perpetuated in Canada, and there's a strong connection with China as well. Startlingly, the same signs, Taurus and Libra, ruling the soul and personality of both nations. The fourth ray also is coming in through Mercury as one of the rulers of the Geminian quality of the United States. And let's just say that more of the harmony aspect can be coming in through that skillful harmonizing planet Mercury. It says, in contradistinction to the conflict angle which the moon and Vulcan have precipitated. Well, that did work out, and then later the alliance aspect worked out. So it's the moon Vulcan. Interestingly, that Vulcan could be a fourth ray monadic planet, moon known as a fourth ray planet, Germany having the fourth ray soul. It is the moon-Vulcan relation which produces the political conflict, which rages, always rages in the United States, and this is one of the most severe moments for that conflict, and it's being, there's so much testing going on, really. And we have to see whether that same kind of fascism, very lethal form of fascism that emerged in Germany, is going to emerge in the United States. DK warned us about the fascistic tendencies, it's based on separatism, and it's based on the idea of punishment, really. I think in the old Roman days, they carried these sticks and weapons as certain people that were in power. I think it was called fascisti. The word came from the sort of the instruments of punishment they carried with them if they saw people getting out of line according to the rules that they followed. And then there's more here. The fifth ray of concrete knowledge via Venus. Now, whereas Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini, it still counts, and we have to remember that the fifth ray is coming in strongly through Aquarius. Matter of fact, that is the ray which Aquarius transmits, and the seventh ray is transmitted through its planets, but from the constellational angle, it's the fifth ray. And it is interesting that when it comes to the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb in New Mexico, this country, the United States, was the first to succeed in that, and that really took an effort of the fifth ray ashram to succeed. Of course, it was a safe place to undertake that kind of work because so much of Europe was being overrun and was a battle scene with the Axis powers. So the fifth ray comes in a couple of ways. This, says the Tibetan, this confers the intelligence which is so marked in the American people, and that's, coming in via Gemini also, the sign of intelligence, or a sign of related to intelligence through Mercury and Venus, and will eventually determine the lines along which their education will run, and their religious organizations, maybe the new scientific religion or the blending of science and religion under Master Hilarion and Master Jesus can occur in an exemplary manner in the United States. If we get rid of this willful kind of ignorance, which is caused by the narrowness of Cancer and Sagittarius when they are displaying their narrow tendencies. The sixth ray is narrow, and of course later maybe widens out into a much more inclusive type of energy, but it takes a lot of tunnel vision first, and the tunnel has to kind of close down on you. Under the law of repulse for the sixth ray, we in esoteric psychology too, it's a really good read. We study that kind of ending of the tunnel vision, which United States must engage in, that ending. So, there's not a lot of French people in the United States, and France of course has the Ray 5 soul, but still Ray 5 is prominent. And so the blending of science and religion under Aquarius, a new scientific religion, will help to light the way for the people of the world. Every nation has its marvelous soul gifts, backed by its astrological constellational gifts and its planetary gifts, and we just have to see how they all fit together with a degree of meticulous entirety, and that's why what DK has given us is so very useful. And we hope that in the next installment of Bridging Treatises, he will, continue with other emerging nations and telling us still more about the progress, as hierarchy sees it, of the larger nations which he has already enumerated. And then there is the third ray. These are rays which are adapted from zodiacal signs that are important. So active intelligence or adaptability via the Earth, which is a ruler of Gemini, the hierarchical ruler, and also the secondary ruler, the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius. which is the personality sign of Washington, D.C. And there's more to it because some astrologers really think that, and with good reason, I think, that the rising sign for the entire United States should not be considered Gemini, but from their perspective, the religiously inclined Sagittarius. So we certainly have a huge sixth ray soul population. So that would make the Earth even more important. And it brings in, via its personality, adaptability and intelligence. Of course, it also brings in eventually, and now especially, the great second ray of love, wisdom, which is the soul ray, the soul ray of the planet, and the soul ray, of course, of the United States. So active intelligence and adaptability via the Earth, it's a grounding influence, thus grounding the American people and basically making the soil their problem. I wonder what he means by that, you know. The fascists, the Nazis, had kind of a theme called blood and soil. I don't think in the United States we have that particular issue, so what does he mean? Hence, okay, he'll explain a bit, hence the prominence of agriculture in the public consciousness. You know, the old idea of the breadbasket and the breadbasket of the world, sometimes thought to be so. Hence the prominence of agriculture, you know, it has to do with the earth, with the third ray, with that which is supporting and basic. Prominence of agriculture in the public consciousness and the preoccupation of the government with, well, this is old stuff, of course, but with the cotton problems, the corn problems, and many other issues of the moment. And I know California, which is a Virgo state, it guards very much the entrance of people from other states, lest the agriculture suffer. And in the breadbasket of the United States are the central states. They tend to be more conservative and more maybe biblically oriented in the South, and they have a lot of agricultural issues. And then Ray 6 comes in again. Idealism and devotion via Mars, Mars being the hierarchical ruler. You see, all of these are indirect influences. Mars being the hierarchical ruler of Sagittarius, the personality sign of Washington, D.C., and maybe an influential sign otherwise. And since it's a sixth-ray soul, you know, I mean a sixth-ray personality, Mars will be important. This greatly augments the sixth-ray personality of the states. I guess it's that Washington connection, thus presenting very real problems in a young people, you know, an adolescent people. It hasn't been around that long. The nation itself had an ancient history in Atlantis, but the new order of the centuries, the sort of the new Atlantis of Bacon and the hopes for a utopian culture, these are all new, you know, under Master R. So thus presenting very real problems in a young people who are apt always to be fanatical and exclusive, and we certainly see this destructive fanaticism working out now. And they reserve for themselves the right to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, as if there were none others that were that, you know, in the national anthem. Exclusiveness is one of the major weaknesses of the sixth-ray type. So the real cooperation of the United States, occurs under its second ray soul, but not its sixth ray personality, and not any influences which promote that sixth ray personality. And we have at the present moment an administration, the leader of which has Mars rising, so sixth ray Mars is rising, and that leader has the moon in Sagittarius, which emphasizes again the sixth ray, and its hierarchical ruler, again the moon. No, the hierarchical ruler is Mars, sixth ray. So sixth ray is coming in from all kinds of places. We cannot just look at the direct influences of the soul ray and the personality ray. We have to also see the indirect influences which add weight to the major influences. And then finally ray 4 again. And this influence appears, as you see, frequently, but this time it's through the moon as it veils Uranus, and not just Vulcan, because the Uranus is the cult mind, Neptune is maybe occult sentiency, and Vulcan is related to the etheric physical body. All of those under the fourth ray moon. But Uranus is very, very prominent in Aquarius, and it's the esoteric, it's the orthodox ruler, but it also is the veiled hierarchical ruler of mind, and it helps with the process of transfiguration. So the moon, as it veils Uranus, fourth ray is coming in. This produces a conflict of a different nature than that which takes place when the moon veils Vulcan, the moon veiling Vulcan, the weapons race, the atomic race, the race for more sophisticated weaponry. Well, it could also enter, because Uranus can be applied to subtle energies which, bring in such things as lasers and destructive use of radiatory powers. But anyway, he says it's of a different nature than the moon veils Vulcan, or when there's the transmission of the fourth ray directly. Uranus is the medium for the seventh ray, its soul ray, I guess, and the function of its blending with the fourth via the moon is to bring about, and this is really important, a magical relationship between the many diverse nationalities found in the United States. Considering the United States as a kind of melting pot, not just with the different groups in splendid Cancerian isolation, but blended and melted together. Well, eventually, by the time we're well into the sixth root race, there's going to be a great uniformity in the external vehicle of humanity, and this business of racial distinction, I think, is going to be fading away, because it's going to be, says the Tibetan, more of a golden colored race everywhere. So the blending and the merging is occurring. I don't know how long it will be before that prediction comes true, but it will be in the sixth root race, when the Buddhic energy is very strong. So many diverse nationalities are blended, and so fuse and blend them into an homogeneous whole. So that's the seventh ray and the fourth ray together. It's a different way of this merging and blending, and it's promoted very much by the fourth ray with the subsidiary seventh. Notice how often, my goodness, the fourth ray is occurring. 3 times in this list. And the sixth ray, and the seventh ray is occurring at least twice, the fifth ray only once, in terms of the indirect influences. But they are weighty, these indirect influences, and they do pile up, and they do emphasize and strengthen, or maybe stand opposed to the major direct influences. We haven't really been told what is the mental ray of the United States, but if we can look at it that way, we've been given the soul and personality. I think the mental ray would be, again, the fourth ray, and certainly the astral ray would be right now the sixth. And I would say that the ray of activity would be the etheric physical ray. Maybe organization is not the key way of dealing with the outer environmental aspect of the United States. Maybe it's more activity and constant mobility. So you can see here what a wonderful little analysis is given by the Tibetan of pertinent energies, and we can apply these methods that he's using to the individual horoscope too. So one more paragraph here. Thus, the influences pouring into the United States are very many. Maybe with a Gemini personality you would expect that, and there's a lot of variety, of course, in Aquarius too. They relate the country practically to every country in Europe. You know, England or United Kingdom via Gemini, and Germany via the fourth ray, and France via the fifth ray, and then the U.S. is the heir to the Piscean civilization, which ties it in with the Piscean soul of France, and then there's Spain and especially Italy with their prominent sixth rays. And the U.S. has so much sixth ray, you know, so those are just, and of course Russia with its sixth ray and its personality and its Aquarian soul. A lot of resonance there with the U.S. And we can do that, you know, with every nation. We can look for these lines of numerical affinity. A study of what I have said and a consideration of the various tabulations will prove how utterly impossible it is for the American people to dissociate themselves from Europe and the rest of the world, even though, you know, Washington, D.C., ruled by Cancer, has a kind of isolative tendency, which now and then has to be combated by people with a more global perspective, like, let's say, Franklin Roosevelt. And even, you know, during the Civil War, there were those links, and during the Revolutionary War, the link with France was very important, you know, for the victory of the United States. The Statue of Liberty was a gift, you know, from France later on, and some of the best aspects of freedom have been promoted by France in its relation with the United States. Well, okay, I know I've gone on and on here just a little bit. We do have to get into our meditation, and we will take up another nation. There are several of them that are analyzed in this manner. We'll take, maybe, I don't know as completely as this, but I think, you know, with quite interesting cross-references, quite interesting connections to get us to think more synthetically about relationships between the various nations. I mean, there are only some nations here. They tend to be the longer established nations, the personality of which have probably changed a number of times, but maybe not the soul. I mean, you know, India is very ancient. China is very ancient, but it was undergoing tremendous upheaval at the time that this was written and had not settled into its new form of government. I'm sure that in the new teaching of DK, China will figure prominently. And, you know, as he says, Confucius is coming again, a member of the hierarchy, and will create a quote-unquote disturbance. You know, and these disturbances, seem to be passing matters from the perspective of the hierarchy, but they are quite appalling from the closer personality perspective of people who are, simply incarnated and experiencing their role in the national destiny. Okay. So let's at least do a little here. And think together about how God's will must work out in love between the nations and mutual support. God's will is love, at least at this time, with our great second-ray soul for this planet, so that when the new version of the will of God is expressed, it's going to be along the line of the second ray, and maybe one day, maybe especially in the next solar system, the Earth will more fully express its first ray monad. You can find out about that in the 600s of esoteric astrology. Earth is a 1, 2, 3 planet. Monad 1, soul 2, personality 3. So we think about what really is the purpose on the Earth here, and how can we assist with the expression of the divine will. And we say together, in the center of the will of God I stand, naught shall deflect my will from His. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. So more and more we want to act as if we were the triangle, whether it's the soul-infused personal triangle or the triangle of the causal body, the triangle of the spiritual triad, or even, one day, the triangle of the monad. Before us is the square, and we have to bisect the square into two triangles and relate them, and thereby we will contribute to the unification of the nations according to their best qualities. We have to liberate the soul of all nations, and especially to contribute to the liberation of the soul of our own nation. So again, think of the qualities that you want to bring to your nation to help evoke its soul, liberate its soul, see its soul qualities in expression. And if DK hasn't given you those soul qualities, then you know enough about your own nation to detect what are these beneficent qualities. So we'll spend a few moments thinking about how we can contribute to the liberation of the soul qualities of our nation. the illustration here is meant to represent the three lords of liberation, especially the central three: liberty, equality, fraternity. Again, a theme of the spiritual triad, a theme of the fleur-de-lis theme connected with France and that revolution. And especially the liberty aspect being connected with the Syrian law of freedom and the planet Uranus. There's much slavery in the world now. You would think, that so much of that has been defeated, but unfortunately, it still is existing in its economic presentation. And also literally physical enslavement. So we want to liberate our nations through the expression of their qualities. We can imagine that under the Christ, whose presence will pervade all the nations eventually, this liberation will occur. And we say the mantram together: we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. And the closer he approaches, the more there will be that kind of liberty. And even the impending first initiation of humanity is a kind of liberation into the fifth kingdom of nature. And naturally, for the individual for whom this happens, the soul qualities begin to express more and more, and there are such things as initiate countries. We'd have to speculate, are there any right now, but they're on their way. And with the coming of the Christ into objectivity, he's always there, but into visibility, the soul qualities of humanity will be more and more visible. And the sense of humanity treading the great path to illumination and unity of love, and eventually the divine will organize human efforts away from this destructive, egotistical, nationalistic competition. It'll be a different world, and we can even now begin to participate in the preparation for it. Just think of one quality that is a spiritual quality in your nature that you can really radiate, really give to your nation for its emerging spiritual expression. Every little gift of radiation counts to bring forward the idealism which is soul related in every nation. I'm not talking about fanaticism now, I'm talking about soul idealism, which brings us more and more towards the very highest that a nation has to offer, combining in a unitive way the symbolism of the flags of the nations and not in a competitive manner which drains energy and vitiates the whole. We don't want that. We want to be mutually helpful to each other on the individual level and mutually helpful on the community and national level. And then we will become a world citizen, at first for ourselves esoterically. Think about yourself as a world citizen, esoterically considered. We have the culture, the high quality, resident either actively or potentially in every nation. And culture is like a gift. It's like a pearl, produced through much pain at first, but then bestowed upon others to create the crowning of all humanity, with each nation and its culture being an aspect of that great crown of spiritual royalty. It's coming, and especially in the age of universality. All the many energies are there, and we have to know what they mean and how they contribute to the beautiful development of the soul of humanity. Right now there are 5 planetary centers, but there will be 6 and there will be 7. And when we work in relation to our own planetary center, we are creating the conditions under which, when the time is ripe, the other centers can emerge. The 6th root race is almost upon us here in the 4th round, on this 4th chain of the 4th scheme. And Buddhi is coming. It's a frontier for us. We need more and more Buddhi in the causal body of humanity, and of course in our own causal body. So we carry the love energy, the Buddhic energy, the energy of intuition increasingly. We cultivate it. Cultivate, culture, we cultivate it. By our work together, esoterically, on behalf of the soul of all nations and the soul of humanity. Thank you, friends, for your participation in our thought process and in our little meditation, helping to make us more and more responsible as esoteric contributors to a real change in the civilization of humanity and in the expression of the human soul through a new culture and through a new civilization. We have to be patient. The age of universality, an equinoctial age of Aquarius, will last some 2,000, well, sometimes it's said to be 2,500 years with overlaps, but some 2,160 years is the figure usually given. And we will have a number of incarnations during that time, and we will develop a certain perspective on what is possible for humanity. So lots of love and many blessings from Tuya and myself and from the whole communications team that, tries to offer us all, whatever country we may be from, a way to think together, meditate together, and serve together increasingly as members of the new group of world servers. And we'll see you tomorrow evening, perhaps some of you anyway, in helping to evoke financial resources for the work of the hierarchy and the reappearance of the Christ. And it will be, yes, at the same YouTube link that we're using here. So, many blessings and gratitude to you. Let's keep working together. Although it's behind the scenes and not appreciated by so many more outwardly turned human beings, we know it can be very effective as part of the work of the new group of world servers, part of the esoteric work of that serving body that represents the still more esoteric body of hierarchy. We'll see you soon, and let's just stay with it. Bye for now.